Hi, this is Mike Hibbert back with another Ruby on Rails tutorial for you. This time we're going to take a look at the subject of Rails engines. Now, engines are basically Rails applications that have been set up so that they can then be reused by other applications. So they're effectively an application on their own, but they're reusable. Now, you may have come across things like this when you've done things like use the gem called Devise, for instance, which is a Rails engine that deals specifically with authentication and logging in and logging out and registration and all that sort of stuff. And you basically install the engine by installing the gem, and then you just go ahead and use it inside of your application without having to rewrite all the code, which is really handy. Now, the engine that we're going to try and build is basically an engine that allows us to create like an online shop or gallery of products that we can have displayed on our page. And if I just give you a quick overview of what it is, it will give us the ability to create products within a category, and then for us to be able to click through and see the individual details of the application of the products. Obviously it's got a thumbnail at the top, a title and some information. You could also put in here a cost, although we haven't in this particular tutorial. The way you do that would be very simple, so maybe we could leave that as an exercise for you. And obviously we're also taking advantage of the Twitter Bootstrap CSS that we learned about in a previous tutorial. So how do we get started with this? Well, the first thing we need to do is, if I just come out of here, we need to go into just go back one. We need to start by installing a little bit of software. So if I just clear off my screen, the first thing we need to do is install some support for an image manipulation library that we're going to take advantage of, called ImageMagick. Now, ImageMagick needs us to install some C development libraries, and don't worry, we're not going to be doing any development in C. It's simply so that when we install the Ruby version of ImageMagick, which is called RMagick, we're going to be able to then install that and have the gem system actually do the compilation and make sure it's set up properly on our machine. So the first thing we need to do is to do the following command: install. So it's sudo apt-get install lib magic ++-dev. Now, once you've done that, it'll download and install that development package, so that when we actually start to install the gems for this engine, it will be able to compile correctly and install the module for us so that we can continue on. So that's the first thing we need to install. The next bit is where we move on to just actually doing the Rails engine itself. Now, the first thing we need to do is we need to create the actual engine structure. Now, normally when you do this or do a Rails app, you do Rails new, then app name, blah blah blah. In the case of this, we want to create an engine, and so we have to create something called a plugin, or rather the engine is a plugin. We do Rails plugin new, then we need the name of the actual engine we're going to call it. I've called it shop-eng. You can call it anything you like. You could call it ham or cheese, or depends whatever the subject matter is really. So you don't have to end it in the word eng, for instance. It's just I've chose to put that on the end. The next bit is we tell this Rails that this is a full engine and not just a plugin, because we've used the keyword plugin there. We need to tell it that it's not just a plugin, it's a full engine plugin, which means that it'll be able to extract itself out completely and exist as a module on its own that can be reused elsewhere. And the way that we reuse it is we will mount this plugin. So we need to also tell it that this is a mountable plugin also. Now, what mountable means is that you can see in the URL that this starts at shop / and then the rest is categories 1 and then whatever. This is actually where we're going to mount the application. So whenever you visit the website, this particular engine application will be available on URLs that start with shop. So when we're saying this is mountable, we're saying that this application actually has a URL that will be accessible, or rather will be the point of access for this app. Okay, so we do that, and that will roll away and hopefully generate you a nice set of folders, and the one we're looking for is shop env. So if we go into there, I'll do a quick list of the files in there. You'll see that it looks very, very similar to the actual normal Rails applications that you'll have been doing in previous tutorials. In fact, if I just basically show you the structure of the folders, you've got your bog standard app folder, you've got within there assets, controllers, etc., models, views, and you've also got the config and db folder and a lib folder. Then you've also got a test folder. Now, one thing to note is, because this is an engine, it's not a fully fledged application. It's an engine that's been set up in a certain way. So to actually run this engine without including it in another app during your development time, if you go into the test dummy section, you'll find there's another Rails application within there. Now this is being specially made specifically for testing your engine. So when we come to run the server, before we actually include it into another app, we'll use this particular engine, this particular app within the test dummy section, just to actually see that it really works. And you can see there that this is basically another Rails app inside of there, and it's literally plugged in to the engine already, set up for you just for testing purposes. Right, so moving back to what we were talking about before, this is more or less a Rails engine, a Rails app, but it's been unplugged, so to speak. Now, the things that are of main interest really are the way that things are set up inside. Now, for instance, if we go into lib shop eng, you'll notice that in a lot of these folders everything's separated by this folder system called shop eng, which is the name of the application. In every single one of these folders there's some there, and that's used for namespacing. Now, in your normal Rails application you would have an application.rb file, but for this application or this engine you have an engine.rb file. And if you ignore this line for the time being, what you've got is an engine that is derived from the Rails engine, and it's using this command isolate namespace shop eng. So what it's actually doing is it's saying to the Rails system, this module needs to be separated using namespacing, so that if we import it or include it in some other application, the actions and the models and everything inside of here will not collide with the app that's using it. So that's important to notice, that everything's namespaced and it's out of the way, kept separate so that it doesn't collide with any of the applications that you might reuse this engine in. So the next point of interest is really this shop.gemspec file. Now, if we open the gem file, which is the file you'd normally put your referrals to gems in, you'll see it's got nothing in there except for the word gemspec. And that's basically Rails' way of saying that this actually isn't really an application, it's an engine. So go away and find a gemspec file within this current folder. So if we look down, we find that there is a gemspec file here. It's the shop eng gemspec file. And if we open that up, we see here that it's basically got a load of Ruby code in here, and you can see there it has a command to add dependency for Rails 4. I've added 2 more dependencies by using the add dependency function. I've added carrier wave and RMagic. Now carrier wave is a gem that allows us to upload files easily using the Rails system, and RMagic is a gem that gives carrier wave the ability to resize or crop or do whatever you want with image files. So we use carrier wave to upload the files, but we use RMagic to enable carrier wave's ability to resize the images. So say this image in real life is absolutely massive. We can upload this picture and the RMagic side of carrier wave will actually do the resizing of that, and that's something I'll show you later on. So we need these 2 dependencies in here. What will happen when we actually import this into another application to reuse this engine? That application will look through this gemspec file and it will import carrier wave and RMagic for us automatically. So we won't have to declare this again. This is literally adding as a kind of a list of dependencies for our engine. To quickly note also, there's extra bits, so if you write your engine and you want to make sure that people know who you are, and you can put your email address in there, authors, names, that sort of thing. Homepage, summary, description. So if you end up publishing this your particular engine as a gem, then that's probably where you'd fill in that information. That would be the way that you make sure that everyone knows who did it, and you'll get lots of credit. Anyway, moving on. The next thing we've done after we've added these dependencies is we need to then make sure that the system knows that we've got these. So as normal, once we've added dependencies like gem files, we do bundle install at the command line, and that'll go away and pull in firstly carrier wave, then it will pull in it will pull in RMagic, and it will compile it using the module that we previously installed, and then that should be good to go. Okay, right, now whilst we're still on the subject of the carrier wave, we want to be able to use that in terms of actually uploading files in the process of us using our models. So what we're going to do next is we're going to actually go through quickly and create 2 sets of scaffolding for a categories section of the website of the engine and a items section of the engine. Now categories will be related to items, so a category can have many items obviously, and a item can belong to a category. So we need to quickly create those scaffolding so that we can then start to link everything together and then link it up finally with the carrier wave module, so that we can actually upload our thumbnails at the same time.